welcome back to Brashonomics. Oh, a good friend of mine, Matt Royal, joins us. Matt, I've known for a long time. And, his experience just in the commercial real estate realm is vast, and both nationally and internationally. He's executed transactions in more than 38 states and 13 countries. And he was just digging for fossils in Wyoming.
Yes, I was.
That is, that's kind of a cool little gig. I want to get into the commercial real estate and the leasing and triple nets and all that, but I mean, you were digging for fossils, man.
Yeah, it's my fifth trip out there, and I went with a buddy here in Bellevue, and it's a 14-hour, 15-hour drive, and we go out to this rock quarry, and we just split rocks and keep doing it till we find what we're looking for.
And you found fossils. I mean, real genuine fossils.
Between 30 and 50 million years old, yeah. It's kind of cool.
What did they look like?
They're fish, and there's bugs and grass and palm fronds and
palm fronds, huh?
Palm fronds, yes. If I said that properly.
I don't even know what that means.
Oh, it's just a palm leaf.
Oh, okay.
Just a leaf. So and there's all sorts of different names in the genetic species and the scientific names, but it's like, it's a fish. It's a little fish. That's a big fish. That's a spiny fish.
Well, that's kind of, it's funny. You think about like a scientist who has all these terms and the way they do it, but really,
it's a fish. Right,
it's a fish. But I think that could be a lot of that transition can be true when people are looking at real estate, right? Because I might say, hey, it's a lease. I'm just going to go lease a property for my business. But then as you are like the scientist. I mean, all these terms and right. I would call it a lease. I would call it a place to conduct business. You would call it maybe, a triple net, or you'd have all these different things that I would need to think about that I don't.
Yes. Not the lease scientist.
You are the lease. I love it.
Let's not get anything started with that. Basically, when you're a tenant or you have a small business, there's 2 to 3 types of leases you're going to have. Full service lease, where the tenant pays one lump sum to the landlord every year, and it's pre-calculated out what your base rent or what your rent's going to be for the full term. The second most popular type of lease is your triple net lease. And when they say triple nets, everyone says, yeah, I understand what's in a triple net lease, but they really don't. The triple nets the 3 N's stand for your base rent net, your taxes, utilities, and insurance.
So figure that one out. Your 3 N's stand for taxes, utilities, and insurance.
Yes, but then there's also wrapped into that your CAM charges, or your common area maintenance charges. And so when your earlier guest was talking about, what to do to preserve, and later guest here will talk about what you want to do to preserve your home, your residential asset. That's your asset. When you're paying your operating expenses and your triple nets, you're really preserving and maintaining the landlord's asset. And so when a tenant is out looking for a space or a park building, whether it be retail, industrial, or office, the first thing you want to do is look at how the park's condition is. Look, do they have landscaping? Is the building painted? Things like that. Those are some of the key signs that'll tell a tenant whether the landlord is truly active in their management of the property, or they're trying to cut some corners. They may not be financially as strong as you'd want, so they let the park deteriorate. Because the first thing, we all do at home, when you have a little hard quarter or year, you may not fertilize the lawn as much, or you may not, pay the landscaper to come trim the trees this year. And so you get a little bit of more growth, or things start to deteriorate a little bit. Same thing with commercial real estate. You look at it that way.
So when somebody's thinking about, business owners, maybe thinking about, I'm going to go find a place to lease a business, a spot, an office.
Correct.
What are, you talk about these operating triple net leases, or your CAMs, or versus like a full service lease.
Right.
How does somebody who, as you call a fish fossil, a big fish, versus something, some Latin iptimus, itemus, whatever.
Understood. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, how does somebody just go and make those decisions?
Well, everybody looks, when you're looking at your lease, you look at it as, what's my base rent? What's my rent going to be? And no one looks at the triple net cost. I mean, they do, but it's like, that's a business cost and everybody's paying that. Well, that's not really truly the case. Landlords will lower their base rent and then change the terms of their operating expenses to where they're no longer just the 3 N's plus your common area maintenance. they'll start putting in administrative fees, bonuses, medical plans, benefits, compensation, vehicles, things like that. So when you're comparing leases or lease rates for any of the three types, office, warehouse, or industrial, you really want to understand what the landlord is calculating into their triple nets. Now, you won't really know that until you get the lease, but that's why you would hire a professional or a professional broker or an attorney who specializes in real estate, not an attorney that specializes in wills and escheats or whatever.
IP.
Yeah. You don't want to do that. You want a real
Divorce.
estate attorney. Divorce.
Marriage.
They say they can do, or they profess to do that, but they really have to have an understanding of the operating lease, the general accounting procedures and rules, what expenses a landlord has that will be capitalized, which ones are considered repair and maintenance. Because what will happen is when a landlord starts to feel the pinch because of high vacancy or their note has gone up and their payments are increasing at a faster rate than their rents are increasing, they will start to leverage or pass through some of those expenses to the tenant. And so...
Is there no rules against? I mean, can you just start passing things on and just kind of...
If it's in the lease, they can pass it on. And one of the things that I always try to put in there, there's two types of expenses a landlord has. There's controllable expenses and non-controllable expenses. Taxes, utilities, and insurance are things the landlord has absolutely no control over. Those rates are set by the utilities, by the state and county. The other things they have control over are, landscaping,
janitorial services.
Yeah, repair and maintenance, capitalized expenditures, snow removal. They really don't have, but those are some of the
Snow removal.
Snow removal. Oh, you'd be surprised on the East Coast. That's a significant expense.
Really?
Significant. Yeah, I could tell you stories, but that's for another show. But one of the things that tenants should and landlords don't like to do, but you should see if you can have your broker place a cap on your controllable expenses. That way the landlord isn't going to give his brother-in-law who owns a landscaping business a 50% increase in wages or the window cleaner or the 5% that they hold back for repair and maintenance and reserve accounts, things like that. So if those aren't stated in the lease, the landlord and the landlord's accountant can make their property more profitable at keeping a lower base rent and increasing the triple nets to meet their needs.
It seems that would be kind of bait and switch.
No, it's buyer beware.
Yeah.
You would say if tenants out there think, oh yeah, I've done leases before and we have your base rent and your triple nets and there's some concessions in there. If it were that simple, there wouldn't be this billion-dollar industry built around it. It's not set up. This industry isn't set up for novices to go in and win. It's just not. It's a very cutthroat business. There's a lot of money involved in tenants who do, and we've talked about it before, tenants who do leases for their business once every 3, 5, 7, or 10 years. They're negotiating against landlords who do this 4 times a day and 6 days a week. And there's just, the tenants just are a little bit unarmed when they go in there. So
yeah, I mean, it would seem that way. I mean, it would seem that if you're in the business and you are able to, I mean, kind of the goal of owning property would be to maximize the capital, the return, right? That's
the landlord's goal. They're not there to give property away. They're not there to give benefits to tenants, and that's not bad. I'm just saying that's their business, and everybody's in business to make a profit. And some businesses are more profitable. Some buildings are more profitable. It's how they buy them. It's how they maintain them. It's the class and clientele they put in it. But their job is to maximize every square foot of the property. And you look at a ceiling tile as 2 by 2. It's 4 square feet. That comes at cost. And if they can get another 3 cents a square foot out of each per month out of a 200,000 square foot building, that adds up.
Judging by the amount of ceiling tiles in our studio here, you're looking at about, I don't know.
Oh, geez.
I'm not counting that fast, nor am I doing math.
But you're about 350 or 400 square feet in here.
Yeah.
So, and you look and you say, well, that's not much. Well, you multiply that times this whole building times 7 floors.
It's a huge, I mean, it can be huge.
Yeah.
But I guess if you are the tenant and you don't think about that stuff, you think these are small nominal costs that can really come back and bite you. We're here with Matt Royal, President and Managing Broker of the Royal Commercial Corporation. Matt, just have about a minute left before we have to go to break. But so what do tenants really do to protect themselves? You talked about, controllable or cap the controllable expenses as one way.
Right. Well, and the next show we can talk a little bit more, the precursor to that. But again, we've said this, I think, every show. Hire a professional or retain a professional real estate broker. If you're doing commercial, find someone who does commercial. If you're looking for residential, find someone who specializes in residential. And there's even people that specialize in warehouse or industrial versus retail and office. But if you find a professional, quiz them, ask them, have them explain to you what the key parts of the provisions of the lease are. They should be able to do that. If they can't explain it to you, or if they can't explain it to somebody like they're 8 years old, that's probably not the broker for you. And if they just tell you, hey, never mind, I'll take care of that, you don't need to worry about that. Don't use that guy or person or that gal.
Well, Matt, yeah.
Just get a professional and have them help you and ask them questions.
Because, most people would think triple net, which is actually, the acronym is NNN. And if you think, well, what does that mean? And somebody says taxes, utilities, and insurance, well, that's what they should be saying. But
then if a landlord comes in with a base year lease or modified gross, and it's like, hey, wait a minute, now it gets confusing. Your broker should be able to explain it to you in clear, simple English what those are, and you should understand.
And what about it? I mean, what about giving you advice for which way to facilitate the lease?
The landlord will facilitate how they're going to do their accounting because they probably have several properties and they're not going to change their accounting processes or methodology for one small tenant. But again, your broker will help you because if you're 2% of a park or a building, you're not going to get much wiggle room on anything. But if you're 30%, 50%, you have a little more leverage. You have a little more flexibility in demanding what you want.
Sure. Well, Matt, thanks so much for joining us. We do have to go to break. Again, Matt Royal with Royal Commercial Corporation. When we come back, good friend of the show, also Jim Estrada. I don't feel like I see enough anymore. It's good to have him back. Jim Estrada is going to join us, owner and lead inspector of Property Inspector LLC, because there are things that are coming up, including more clouds and the wind and, probably rain too. What are you going to do when fall hits with your house? We're going to talk about making sure your house is prepared for the storm that is football season. We'll be right back.